Hi, everybody, and welcome to Short Fuse. I'm Duncan Roberts, and I'm here in person with the one and only Oliver O'Donoghue. Hi, Ollie.
Hello, Duncan. It's a real treat. We're in your kitchen.
We're in my kitchen.
It's a lovely kitchen, dear listener.
Yeah, well,
He's done
they
very
can
well
see.
for himself.
Many people can see, so
They can see a fraction of it. It's massive.
It's
just
not
a small corner of Duncan's kitchen is where we occupy.
And we decided to do this to be in person to talk about the biggest theme that's coming off our emerging tech tracker at the moment, our theme tracker, which is about job losses and AI. So everybody's talking about whether AI is going to take all of our jobs. What do you reckon, Ollie? Are you short or long on that?
On jobs or on AI taking them?
Oh, how do we organise this?
That's the trouble. That's the trouble. We've landed ourselves in hot water here once again, haven't we? I think if we say, will people have jobs in the future? Do we believe that's probably the easiest way of looking at this and dissecting it? And I do believe people will have jobs in the future.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is just one of many merry-go-rounds that we tend to go on, where a technology emerges or a theme emerges, and we say, well, that's it. No one will ever work again, and we just redefine what work is, and we go.
So
off
you're
and do
long.
things. Yeah, I think unfortunately so. Yeah, despite the dystopian side of the coin, I think actually it'd be pretty great if people were liberated to do what they wanted to do.
But do what they wanted to do in terms of jobs, like
and how you feel your day. Yeah, and how you feel your day. I think for people like us, like we did, we could choose, Duncan, right now to sit on the sofa and do something else. We've chosen to do this instead. And I think most people would do a similar thing. But also if people do choose to spend their time sitting and reading books, I think that's also okay.
So hang on a minute, right? So you are long on people having jobs, but they also have the chance to sit and read books if they want to.
I don't think they will have that chance. So I'm long on people having jobs. I think we will be forced into the salt mines no matter what. Is my point.
Right.
The counterpoint is I don't believe in the dystopian narrative that without jobs everyone will descend into chaos and will be it'll be a nightmare situation. I don't think that's true, but which is the unfortunate side of the story. I think we'll have to have jobs. They'll make us. The man will.
Yeah. I mean, for sure. But right, let's dig into this a little bit further before I give my bet.
That's always how this works, isn't it?
So I can just be a bit more. I can have a bit more refinement to my thought process.
I give a pressured response to something I haven't prepared for, and then at the end, Duncan will be like, "Well, on balance of probabilities, I've decided."
So, if you are long on people having jobs, what will those jobs be? And is it because you think AI won't take the jobs, or AI is going to create more work, or AI is not good enough to replace those jobs? What's your reasoning behind being long?
Two or three. I don't think AI is actually the bogeyman for jobs that people think it is. I think it's just the latest scapegoat. So if you were to look, a lot of the conversation right now and the stories that are picked up in the discovered themes part are, it's really tough to get a job right now. Mm-hmm. And the blame is, it's because of AI. But I don't think that's necessarily true. Yeah. AI might be a part of it, but AI is fueling hiring sentiment in large businesses where they say like, that plus tariffs, plus lack of demand, plus are we in a bubble, plus recession looming, we'll hold back on hiring. And I think AI is probably actually just a small part of it, and it's fueling that mindset. And that's what's powering that stuff right now. So first of all, I just don't think that narrative is true. Mm-hmm. First of all. But the second part is I think work is more complex than people give credit to. Mm-hmm. So again, if we were to look at what we're doing now and describe this grift.
This grift and this kind of like Heath Robinson style setup.
Yeah, exactly. If we were to describe this as work and you were to try and develop an AI product that would do all of the things that we do to get to the fantastic quality output that our listeners love, it would be a very complex undertaking. Yeah. Now, you could have AI do distinct parts of that, and I would argue in a very expensive and potentially not good way, it would be able to handle most of those tasks. Mm-hmm. But there isn't really a process, an end-to-end process of us delivering this product that you could easily automate or agentify, right, without a lot of customization and cost. There are areas like, and I always talk about my background, I come from the service desk industry, there are very set processes which more or less everyone follows. Sure, you can automate those. But this is the part where I think AI is a bogeyman. You always could automate those.
Yeah.
It's very easy to automate them, and no one did. Mm-hmm. And it was either because, people value being able to speak to people. I don't necessarily buy that as someone who desperately tries to avoid
No,
speaking to humans at
definitely
any
not.
point. But there's a part of it. But cost was a big one. Well, actually, it's just too expensive to do it, and humans are very agile, and it means that if something changes, a human can respond to it on the fly. We don't have to code anything. I know that's not necessarily untrue of AI these days, but it just doesn't feel like at a click of a button you can automate all of the things that most jobs do. You could do 10%, 20% in some roles, 80%. But in the roles where it was 80%, my hunch is you always could have done that, and there's a valid reason why you didn't.
Yeah. Okay. Before we get into that in more detail, I'm going to give my bet. And I'm long on jobs, but for a different reason, right?
Better be a good reason after what I've just said.
It's a better reason.
Because I believe in human ingenuity, Ollie.
No, I definitely don't.
Absolutely not.
No. So I'm not long on people having jobs because I think AI is going to create this new miraculous kind of classification of jobs. I just think that there is so much to do to put AI into industry and consumer behavior and build these products that people will need jobs to do that, and then to manage that, and to put the guardrails around it, the whole kind of ethics and bias stuff. But I think that's actually much less of it. We talk about people just need to know how to prompt engineer and stuff like that. I don't think that that's a job anymore. I think AI is getting good enough that you shouldn't have to figure out how to prompt AI. It will understand your intent eventually. But just the sheer amount of work putting AI into business and then leveraging AI and making sure the quality output is right is vast, right? So as an example, you said, we've got this set up as a podcast. We haven't used AI to do it, and you don't think AI could deliver the end-to-end product. No, AI couldn't deliver the end-to-end product, but we are using a platform that uses AI to edit us going out. It can also do stuff like make your eyes look at the camera. I've tried it out. It's very creepy. It doesn't work. But in some cases, it can create YouTube shorts for us. I can go, can you create me a YouTube short that's based on this part of the conversation? It'll just pop up. So whereas AI isn't replacing anything that we're doing here, it's making it a lot easier. But that's not what I'm talking about. The work I'm talking about is the amount of effort that the platform that we're using has had to go to build that into the platform. There are engineers, there are product managers, there are, the HR people that are managing those people. There's all the infrastructure around just this platform, of which there are many that are trying to put AI in. And that's a lot of work. And, the IT services industry that goes out and kind of manages people's cloud platforms and their SAP platforms and all of that, there will be hordes of people required to manage the platforms that deliver the AI stuff. So I think a large part of it is AI creating jobs to put AI in and manage AI, and the sheer capability increase and the new products that are being released and how hard it is to keep up with that. We're seeing a massive lag between what businesses are actually using versus what AI is capable of. That we've got to catch that up somehow. It's going to be a long time before that actually gets caught up.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because what you're describing is the industry part of the Industrial Revolution, because that's always what people go to, is where the Industrial Revolution completely transformed, absolutely everything, and all of these jobs disappeared. But the actual building of factories, maintaining factories, working in factories, managing trade relationships, because you now are shipping out loads more products, meant that more and more people were employed. I mean, you can look at the signs of our populations now to what they were before the Industrial Revolution and think, it's not like the amount of jobs stayed exactly the same or decreased. It expanded and expanded.
And those weren't new jobs, right? Like necessarily. So it was somebody building a factory or maintaining a factory. You always had builders. You always had people who maintain stuff. Pretty much always had engineers by any other name.
Right.
But, and I don't think that these are net new jobs. Like, I think that the people who do them already exist. They're product managers, they're engineers, they're people who leverage technology to get something done. They're just going to do it in slightly different ways and focus on different things. to a point, because all of those legacy things, the things that we've used up to this point, still need maintenance.
Right. And they'll probably still be around. I think the interesting part of this for me is the one thing that neither of us have said. Well, humans will just do better things. You know, oh, well, you know, instead of moving paper from a filing cabinet to another filing cabinet, that person will now become, you know, a doctor or something like that. And I don't necessarily buy that. The reason I don't buy it for this is the demand side. So most of the business cases that we've seen where organizations have said, hey, we're using AI and we're going to reduce costs, just haven't worked. It just does. I think at its rawest case right now, the economics doesn't work. It's very expensive technology. To your point, you often need more people just to make that thing happen. So if you were to do a cold abstraction, it's like, well, we got rid of 10 people, we're to hire 20.
Yes.
This hasn't worked out for us. So the cost reduction part doesn't work. So a lot of the narrative now is we can produce more.
Yeah.
Which is true. So you can produce more. You, to your point, we're using this platform now, and it stops me from sounding incoherent, which is I'm very grateful for. And AI is doing that for me, right? And it improves the quality. However, is there enough demand for podcasts to make that investment worthwhile if we were a podcast factory and we were producing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of podcasts? And the answer is probably no. To use a more precise example, if you were a factory and you embedded AI into your production facilities, and these are numbers that people are saying, we've doubled output. Well, is there truly a market for twice as many cars?
Yeah.
At the same price or even cheaper today? Probably not.
Yeah.
You know, it's not showing up in the market. So that part of the thesis also doesn't make the investment worthwhile to me. So the achievement of ROI off the back of, hey, we're going to reduce costs. Well, that's not going to work. We know that now. Improving quality seems pretty suspect. There are loads of really funny examples where AI has done some. I was watching one, and it's just a series of people. I think it was Taco Bell in the US implemented a voice recognition AI thing. So you shout into the thing, hey, I'd like a burger or whatever, and it's AI that handles it for you. And it's people losing it at the app, just losing it at this, you know, where a human used to be able to, you know, hey, I'd like some chicken nuggets and chips. And a human would be like, yeah, okay, well, it's one of the three things we sell. So easy enough. AI just couldn't handle it. It was, you want what? And it was things like it put bacon in ice cream and stuff like that. And you ordered all sorts of crazy things. So the quality thing doesn't seem to be, you know, the technology isn't mature enough and people are walking it back. Duolingo, I think, famously walked it back over, was it consumer perception?
Yeah.
So consumers saying, well, but also the product got worse. If I remember rightly, the product, you know, people were learning French worse.
Yeah. And a lot of what I think that the issue is about AI, you know, taking everybody's jobs is around quality, is around the quality of the output. It's not necessarily, you can produce double of something. You can produce double of something that's half as good as what you were producing beforehand, potentially. And you and I have discussed this before. That's sometimes okay for certain brands, for certain companies. Quality is an issue. It's just about mass.
10% worse for 20% less.
Yeah,
there is a market for that.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
The value has increased.
Yeah,
in theory,
and it depends about where you're sitting in the value chain of that business. But for other companies, the quality is super important because it's regulated, because people will die, you know, that kind of thing. But so I think it's very much variable on the type of company and the type of role that you're doing. But also, so much of the narrative is like AI is going to wipe out all of these jobs. And you read about that in the media, and it's just going to wipe this. That envisages that there's just some kind of switch you can flick.
Yeah.
That somehow it's just going to happen. And we've seen that that things like places like Duolingo have said, right, we've got rid of all of these people. There was a thing about Versal AI, I think it is, saying, oh, we've got rid of 9 out of 10 salespeople because AI can do the job. They're an AI company, of course they're going to say that.
Right. Yeah.
There's so many nuanced narratives going on here about who's saying what, why they're saying it, whether AI can actually do what they're saying, and then whether it's good enough, the output is good enough to produce that. And then, as going back to my first point, how long is it going to take to industrialize that to get to the point where it's part of the process and it's giving you the outputs you want. It's a long time.
Yeah.
And all of those different weaving interactive and interchangeable narratives mean that no, jobs aren't just going to disappear.
Well, and the good enough point is the one that's interesting, because and again, I think sometimes we're victims of drinking our own Kool-Aid, because we talk about this all the time. We understand AI really well, and I often think, well, you understand it very well from a technological point of view. I'm nowhere even close to that, but like you're relatively cynical. I mean, you see the potential of it. I'm much more cynical because I'm a miserable person, but you're cynical because you understand the technology and go, well, it's really good at doing these things, but it's very bad at doing these things. Hiring managers don't have that knowledge. Yeah. So they're under pressure, like, hey, there is this new thing that gives us a reason to cut costs or do whatever it is, which is what's driving a lot of that narrative. But we're in the early stages of the technology, and it isn't there. It isn't built into platforms that already exist in businesses. And I think once it is, so if you think about AI integrated in a platform like ServiceNow, you could conceivably have that flip of a switch moment for a chunk of roles. Where it's like, actually, you could decide whether or not you activate that today, and it automates it. But we're not there yet. Another part of the good enough bit is there's a lot of stuff where the core value proposition is AI can do it faster. So, hey, our customers would like an immediate response to this. And AI can calculate
and
it
it
in
can
a
work
second.
24/7.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. So, but that's the overriding value proposition is like it's going to be quicker. It can do things faster. Or like you say, if you put a request in at midnight, it'll do it. Right. It'll handle it. There are a lot of industries that are prime targets for something like that. Where, and you mentioned it, but let's say the insurance industry, the data that's input and the data that's output has to be perfect for regulatory reasons alone, let alone brand recognition reasons, which means it has to be checked by a person. Yeah. So if the core value proposition is AI can do this in a second, but then it lands in a queue anyway, where a person's got to be like, oh yes, that's fine. Yeah, that does look okay to me. That value propositions disappeared. There's no point to it whatsoever. There are others where it's not necessarily a regulatory issue. Taco Bell being a good one, I think, based on the example. Sorry, Taco Bell, if it wasn't you, but it's in my head. But like where they've reversed that and said, oh, we're going to put a human in the loop. Yeah, because it isn't working exactly how we want it to. We want to put a human in the loop
because the world is messy, right? So we had this. This is another point about it, is that we had this conversation about the humanoid robots last week, where sure, it works under these kind of very strict conditions when you're making a video of a robot pouring a cup of tea, but put it in this house. Like, I mean, look at this kitchen, there's just stuff everywhere. It knocks over a glass bottle and that smashes and there's glass everywhere and somebody cuts their foot. Like, the world is messy. And as soon as you release this stuff into production in a messy world that has all of these different conditions and stuff, then it suddenly falls over. Yeah. Confidence in it dies. And then all of a sudden you're bringing people back in to do the stuff that you thought we could automate away.
On that point, because our most popular short is us making fun of these robots. There was one today where they've just released, it's perfect for the home. And it's I can't remember the brand, but it's trying to do a basic task in an to your point, a non-messy environment. So there aren't dogs and kids running around. Yeah. It's just dishwasher, and it can't get purchased on the dishwasher. It spends ages doing a task that, again, if you were forced at gunpoint to ascribe a value to, you might be like, oh, one pence, 1 cent or something like that. And this guy's can't do it.
Yeah. And the same goes for that's completely analogous, really, to the Taco Bell example of it going chicken nuggets, like
right.
What?
It's a very basic menu.
And it just not being able to kind of work in this messy environment. Now, I don't want to come across too cynical, because I'm such a big fan of it. Like, we wouldn't be able to do half the stuff that we're doing with our data platform and this podcast if it wasn't for the most recent advances in AI. So I'm a big fan, but I think we've mentioned this before, but I think we just need to be honest with each other about what it can and can't do before we can really start extracting the value from it.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair point. The cynicism here is that, well, I hope you're not suggesting that eventually I will be fired from this podcast and there'll be a bot that can do it. But like, it's just going to come in and say something nonsensical, laugh at its own jokes, and that's more than enough. Those are the only two things that Ollie does for this podcast.
Yeah.
But that's the cynicism, really, is like the narrative that all jobs are gone is the bit that we're cynical about coming from our platform. There's a story to this which is driving the narrative the fastest, which is graduate jobs and entry level jobs, and I think that's a slightly different thing going on there.
Yeah, and I do worry about that.
I think we've looked into this to varying extents around what's going on with entry level work, and I still believe, and it's kind of what I said right at the start there. If you look at most graduate roles, when I was a graduate, it was 2 years training program. So effectively, we're going to train you up over 2 years, and then you'll be put in a department or something like that in the government or whatever it is. And I think that's still very much the standard. That's quite a considerable investment. And contrary to the big point that's all over LinkedIn, which is like AI has ruined my life, it's stolen my jobs, whatever. Well, actually, the financial crisis stole my job when I was a graduate, because it meant that every business went, well, look, we've kind of got to get through the next 6 months on a short-term basis, and then we'll worry about a 2-5-year timeline, which is where the graduate hiring and entry-level hiring fits in. So I think that's more. I think the tariffs, uncertainty over global trade, a couple of wars haven't helped. Certainly, we've been facing a post-COVID recession now since the first COVID wave.
We've been like teased about that for years.
Every business you speak to is in a wait and see. So it's like, the supply chain will kick it off, and then it didn't. The wars will kick it off, and it hasn't. Tariff gate has kicked off, and it hasn't.
Price,
so exactly. And that is, if you're an executive and you're deciding how much budget is going to go into recruiting and graduate employment for the next 5 years, a lot of them will think, well, let's hold off a little bit longer. And I think that all that's happened here is, because it is bad, right? It does look bad. That's just accrued over time. So you've now got people who have been graduates for 2 years competing with 1 year graduates, and now graduates that are just coming out today, and it's just very muddy waters. For anyone who is graduate, again, when I graduated, the financial crisis more or less happened the next day. So it was a nightmare.
I just kept on getting jobs that used to be really like used to have loads of money thrown at them. So I worked in publishing. It was famously boozy, with very expensive parties and money thrown at it. And then the financial crisis happened, and they cut their budgets. Then went into technology. Everybody's cutting their budgets. Everywhere I go,
we're forced to do a podcast in a kitchen, for goodness sakes. I mean, the times are hard.
But the graduate jobs thing, the entry level jobs thing, is interesting, because there is an element of, well, what will they do? My first job was data entry. Haven't really needed to do data entry for quite some time. And I'd shuffled paperwork around and stuff like that. And I don't think that job would necessarily exist now. But I think a couple of things. One is, new people need to cut. They want new blood in to replace older, slightly more expensive blood. New blood is cheaper. And second, actually, I went into a school to do a talk on this topic about jobs and AI, and what should I be learning, to people who were just doing their final year of school before they moved on to university. And the school wasn't talking to them about AI and how it would affect the roles that they're all thinking about looking at for their career development. So it was interesting me going in and talking to them about that. But a lot of those young people are way more up to speed with what AI can do than your board of directors or your managers within a G2000 company. So bringing in graduates who are technology savvy, I think actually can have a big boost to companies right now.
Well, that was the big thing with when I was coming of age into the job market.
It's like a movie. The coming of age movie of Ollie at the Service Desk Institute.
When I was a young debutant on the job market, was, hey, I'm a millennial, I should be able to do your social media for you. But now it's, hey, I'm Gen Z. You're going to need your TikTok managed by Gen Z, and there is some truth to that. There is one of the things that cropped up in the discovery tool is one of the things that Sam Altman said, which I think is interesting. So he's obviously a big bull. You make this point all the time very eloquently, which is like, oh, it's funny how it's the people whose entire business value is predicated on effectively wiping out jobs, because that's the only way it would be worth that amount of money, is if it took that much salary bill off of enterprises effectively, which I think is a very fair point. But he also makes a fair point, which is, well, a lot of those jobs weren't real in the first place, and there is some truth to that. So your first job, like you say, was keying in entry, data entry, that type of thing. We haven't needed to do that for a really long time. But what's called for is a mindset shift in what entry level work looks like, because it used to be, and it still is, well, people need to do something of value.
Yeah.
So they need to do something that makes it worth paying them the amount of money, but actually maybe training them is worth paying them that amount of money. That just seems very unpalatable for, I'm going to blame CFOs. Why not? But it seems unpalatable for a lot of people. Just like, well, if I'm hiring 500 entry-level people, I want them doing something immediately. So sure, they're going to train up, and we eventually will have, they'll all become lawyers or accountants or something like that. But for now, while they're learning, let's give them this completely pointless task that AI could handle. And I think that's the part that's broken, right?
Yeah.
Is our understanding that you need to come in and do a task. Otherwise, what's the point? Well, the task might be training. The task might be actually learning what to do. So imagine if in your early days in the publishing industry, instead of doing data entry, you were following a publisher, so a senior publisher, and actually your mean time to getting where you were relatively senior at that industry, rather than being 2 years, was 6 months.
Yeah.
Because like, actually that's the value for us, is to get that person up to speed as quickly as possible. But it just doesn't seem to be resonating with employers.
No, because I think AI is an excuse, not a reason, for a lot of what's going on at the moment. And we've alluded to that quite a lot. Like, AI has a benefit, has huge benefits. And the technology is transformative. It really is. But the way we're talking about it is absurd. And everybody has an agenda to what they're saying. And people, to be perfectly frank, I think that the people at the top of a lot of companies just have no idea, and they're not being spoken to honestly about this technology and about how to implement it and what it's going to take to implement it. So there's another story in our Discovery Tracker, which is really interesting, which is EA, Electronic Arts, the game company. EA's AI game development tools are apparently so bad that it's costing more money to fix their mistakes.
I can completely believe that. I can completely believe that.
I completely believe it. Like, so I vibe coded our entire kind of technology platform that we're using, and that's not to say it's bad. It works, and I understand what it's doing, and I've been very rigorous on making sure that the scope is very small for each of the things that I do, and then testing it and making sure it comes out. But that's tiny, right? In comparison to a $100 million game,
Right.
this platform is super small. I still don't. If you ask me to explain every single bit of code, I wouldn't be able to do it in there. I'd be able to explain what the application does. I wouldn't be able to explain the code. So you extrapolate that and blow that out, then suddenly you're like, oh, what have we done? And where's the mistake? And that's what people are needed for. Partly putting the AI in, fixing the AI, and also managing what the AI does and what it doesn't do based on what its capabilities are. And there's a huge industry around that, and that's not necessarily technical either. So that part about saying AI can do this, it can't do that. What's your business process look like? Where do we interject AI? Where's the value proposition? That's not necessarily a technical role. That's like a business analysis role.
Right. Yeah.
And I just think there's so much that we're not discussing. We're not being honest with ourselves about discussing, that I think we could do a lot better on. We as a technology industry.
Right. I think the biggest on that point, I think the biggest issue is that no one's figuring out what the working rhythm looks like with AI. So and I think a lot of it is, and again, it goes back to exactly what you say. The guys that are saying, well, I mean, let's talk about Amazon, right? That's one of the biggest stories. Again, it's and this week I'm not sure when we'll go live with this podcast, but I expect it will still be a big story then. They've just announced they're getting rid of a big chunk of workers, right? And with the subtext being, well, AI can handle a lot of this for us, but whether it's an excuse or
But it was
a
also
smoke screen or not,
the
who can say?
subtext to that announcement was weird. There was an element of like AI can do this, but it was also that AI is changing the way in which our business has to operate, not because we're replacing jobs, but because the whole kind of digital interaction paradigm is
Right.
shifting. So we need to be lean to react to it. And again, I think that was kind of a subtle take. And again, I just people just revert to, well, they're going to use AI to do loads of jobs. It's not that.
Yeah, there's another interesting part of it that I think actually makes up the bulk of what's gone on there, where they say, and it is footnoted a bit like what you've described, because which is very telling, right? So if you say like, oh, AI is going to do this, your stock doesn't get hit.
Yeah.
No one thinks you're struggling. They're like, oh, these guys are up and coming, good for them. But deep buried in it is like, oh, of course, everything's really expensive now because it's like 100% tariffs on most of the things that we import. So, it's a nightmare for us. Not to make light of something that's obviously pretty bad for thousands of people, but that seems to be what's driving a lot of these stories is like, well, one, we were going to get rid of a bunch of people anyway. And this is we've got off scot-free here. We don't have to say restructure. We don't have to say any of those words that would get us hard questions from analysts. We can say we're doing some AI stuff, and that means we're now free to get rid of these people. The other one is pure smokescreen.
Yeah,
just pure 100% smokescreen. Our operating model doesn't work anymore. Oh no, we'll do some AI with it.
Yeah. I agree. So much of the discussion out there is dishonest.
Well, I think 99% of the discussion right now is AI is going to get rid of all of our jobs. Bill Gates has said it this week. Sam Altman said it this week. It's an endless stream of people.
But the reason they're saying that is it might be dishonest, and B, it's because people are misinterpreting what they're saying.
Yeah. I think I'm going to push back on that. I think they're very precise in what they're saying. I think a lot of times they're incredibly precise in saying AI means, I think Elon Musk said it, AI means no one will have a job anymore. Yeah. You can't get more precise than that.
No, that's fair.
Sam Altman said, no one's going to have any job anymore. And if you think about it, those jobs were pants anyway.
But it's just rubbish because like who's going to put the stuff in that's going to take those jobs?
Right.
Until OpenAI, X or Grok or Tesla or Nvidia, until those companies have one person and the rest is just AI, I don't believe them.
Well, and the assumption is, which everyone ignores, all these guys ignore, is that you as a human being only need to consume kind of insurance products or financial products where AI is going to be embedded. When you go into a restaurant, and it's just like, AI has printed out your dinner or something. I suppose it's technically possible these days, but like the idea that the entire economy just becomes you in a VR headset consuming paper for the rest of your lives is always overlooked, and it's that demand part of this. Well, if consumers say, well, I'd prefer to work with this company because I do get to speak something. You hear that all the time. Then they become a premium company as a result or something like that. But also there are a huge range of industries where people will definitely be needed. Definitely. There's just the leisure industry, healthcare, all sorts of industries. They'll be augmented and AI will play some sort of role, no doubt, but you'll still have people in them. So when they come out with sweeping statements like, there won't be a single job left. I mean, even just at a basic level of looking at the labour market today and what people consume and use, that's wrong. You immediately know it's wrong.
And like, it's the timelines are important as well. Like, what timelines are people talking about that people won't have any jobs, and what's got to happen to get to that point? There's another story in our Discovery Tracker, which, it's a point about why this is such a good tool, is that. The attention is all you need. The paper that kicked off the kind of the Transformer resolution, the Transformer revolution, and I'm not talking about the fire engine.
Oh no!
Again. But he's a guy that runs a Japanese company now. I forget the name of it. I'll just look it up. But saying he's sick of people just talking about the Transformer model. It's Sakana AI, and I think he's looking at kind of like swarm intelligence and stuff like that. we're also just assuming that AI will continue its trajectory in terms of capability just relentlessly. AI, we had the AI winter, which you've spoken about before, where AI kind of plateaus and people were just like, well,
They hated it,
it's a few
frankly.
if-else statements, you know.
Yeah, the perception of it was like, well, this is a complete grift.
Yeah,
None of it works.
and sure, it's taken a massive leap forward and a very beneficial leap forward, depending on how you look at it. But also, it's going to plateau again, I believe. Like, sure, there's huge amounts of investment behind it at the moment, but I don't think we'll see the same massive leap that we saw a few years ago again for some time. I think it will happen, but I don't think it will happen for some time. I might be wrong, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it's unpredictable, I suppose, isn't it? Because you know, when I read that piece about the AI winter ages ago, and this is the story of my analysis. Really, is whenever I say like, okay, this is the period we're in, it changes immediately the next day. So I think like the ChatGPT revolution happened almost a week later, and I was like, well, you know, that's what I told you, wasn't it?
I'm gonna release this podcast, and they're gonna go, we've got a completely new model, and here's a new product. And
also, there are no jobs. Just declared no jobs.
Yeah, but I stand firm behind that. I stand firm behind my views, and that I'm long on us having jobs, but not because AI is going to create this magical new category of jobs, but because there's so much work to put it in and manage it, and they're not necessarily net new jobs.
I think, here's my summary, the potential popping of the AI bubble will hit the labor market harder than AI will in the short to medium term. So AI removing jobs because it's been intentionally implemented is less likely than there being, you know, I don't want to say like something similar to the .com bubble, but actually it kind of feels that way, doesn't it? It kind of feels that way. And a lot of hiring and investment and capital is flowing into a very specific space. And if that's wiped off of balance sheets, if that's wiped out of the economy, there are knock-on effects elsewhere.
So, you know, another part of that, which we haven't spoken about, is that people with these very specific AI skills are very expensive. So in order to hire those people, they need to cut some jobs elsewhere. So AI isn't taking, it's that old cliche, AI isn't going to take your job. Somebody who knows about AI will. It's not somebody who knows about AI in a job. It's just that they can't afford to hire those people who are doing all this deep AI research without getting rid of swathes of people who they think they don't need. And as it turns out, in some cases, they're having to hire back in.
Well, and I think there's, or in some cases, fire. Like some AI teams have been have taken big hits, and I looked at that. So when, you know, these guys, and it's nothing to disparage their skill set because they're obviously incredibly skilled, but, you know, people being hired for £1 million, then being hired back for 2 million and 3 million. It kind of reminded me a little bit. And given the output that we've seen and the progress that we've seen, I think you described it as iterative, not revolutionary in one of our previous podcasts. And that's effectively what we've seen, kind of, 4.5 is now 5. And you're just like, well, it's kind of worse. This isn't anywhere as good, but you've spent trillions and trillions, you know, billions, and hired all of the best minds. And we've kind of ended up in either the same or the worst place. But it reminds me a bit of, you know, like, I'm not a big football fan, but in soccer, for our American colleagues, but football, where they hire a big name and the big name never leaves the bench. But it's so they can say, we've got that guy. So it's part of it, like, you don't have them. Manchester United, you don't have them, so you can't play them in the field. But also people now look to us as like...
But it's like hiring a big a very expensive football player and then putting them on the pitch, them versus 11 other people, because you couldn't afford the other.
Sure, yeah, they haven't got a team. Yeah, they haven't got a team.
You know,
they're spending their whole time doing expenses.
Exactly.
Responding to emails.
All right, okay. Well, look, that's a good discussion. I think we've gone into a lot of detail there, and I'm sure that this topic will come up again and more and more. And I think it's going to remain at the top of our kind of themes list for a very long time. I mean, I'll bring it up on screen for YouTube, but if you look at the charts, just how much this is dominating the conversation, even around things like the trade war and you know, the government funding restrictions that are going on in the US at the moment. This job replacement by AI is absolutely dominating those themes. So I think this will be something that is on our mind for quite some time. But hope you've enjoyed being in my kitchen.
I've loved
both
it.
Our viewers and listeners and Ollie.
Yeah, it's a real treat for me.
You said that before. Yeah. I feel like you're almost dishonest.
No, it could be dishonesty. Yeah, it could be dishonesty. It could just be I've lacked the imagination to come up with something new. Who can truly say?
All right. Well, thanks for listening and thanks for watching, and we will be back soon.
Cheerio.